Hello and welcome. My name is Leanne Maceo. I'm with Poets and Quants. Thanks to all of you for watching, who are joining us today. Hopefully you have been enjoying the admissions and alumni panels that we've had so far. A special thank you to our guests for this session. All our alums of, I should say, to our alums of online MBA programs and to our current students. All have very impressive backgrounds. And I am very much looking forward to speaking with each of you about the whole journey, the decision process, the choice, the learning experience, and for those who have graduated, the impact that it has had on your career. For those who are watching, if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A chat at the bottom of your screen, and I will do my very best to get to them. So to get started, I would love to get to know our panelists a little bit. So Travis, I'm going to start with you. If you would please introduce yourself, what industry you're in, your company, what you do there, and then let's round that out with a fun fact about yourself.
Fantastic. Nice to meet everyone. Thanks for the time today. My name is Travis Baldwin. Educational background, I've got a BS in finance, BS in marketing, minor in international business, and a couple certificates from some of the Ivies, in addition to finishing up my MBA. I have about 15 years of experience in the software sales environment, so definitely kind of focused on that track. As far as my company, I work for Excite. It's a Norwegian software company that is now global. And I just, as far as my role there, I just am enjoying my fourth promotion since starting the MBA journey. I got 3 while going through it and just got my 4th one. I'm now Director of Global Sales and Operations.
Great, thank you, and congratulations. Michael, let's go to you. Tell us a little bit about your industry, company, what you do, and a fun fact.
Sure thing. So my name is Michael Gonsalves. I'm based just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a 3rd year at the Carnegie Mellon Tepper School of Business. My background is in the academic publishing industry. So I spent 6 years at Pearson Education, and now I've spent the last 2 years at a smaller social sciences publisher called Sage Publications. And I currently work as a software product manager, working on back office sort of master data management systems and workflow management systems. And a fun fact about myself is that although when I lived in Boston for college, I never drove a car for 7 years. Since meeting my husband, I now have owned a convertible, and we have a 1964 Mini Cooper in our garage.
Very cool, very cool. Thank you for joining us. Charles, how about you?
Charles Cummings, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm here representing the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, the Isenberg School of Management. My industry for the last almost 6 years has been in banking. I've done a little of community banking, regional banking, even for Wells Fargo for a while. Settled in for the last 16 years with a community bank in West Central Illinois, Tompkins State Bank. I'm their executive vice president, which means I have my hands in a lot, human resources. I oversee lending, branch operations, the investment portfolio, asset liability management, et cetera. And have been I'm kind of patiently waiting my turn to be president, which is why I'm still executive vice president. So not that I'm encouraging anybody to retire early, but that's kind of a little bit about my professional background. Fun fact for me, the best one I could come up with really is we moved to a even more rural setting recently. I joked that I was going to start a horse and hay farm. My daughter told me, have you even ever been on a horse? And I said, well, once or twice. And she, for Christmas last year, bought me horse riding lessons. So I stood there with their other 13-year-old girls and learned how to ride a horse. And I love it. It's been a blast. So at 48, I started a new COVID, it's something I could do in COVID that was kind of fun.
That's great. Good for you. What a great one. Okay, and then Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you so much. First, Leanne, thanks for having me here today. I'm representing the great University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana. I'm in the process of going into my 2nd year there at MBA. I have a BS in marketing with a sales emphasis. From a professional background, I've been at the exact same company, Altria, for about 16 years. Specifically consumer product goods company, had a variety of positions, started in the field as a sales manager, moved up to be a people leader, moved over to be a region operations manager, and most recently, I am a senior learning and development specialist, really in charge of upskilling our organization, as well as bringing in new hires and getting them acclimated to the organization. Fun fact, I don't know if it's a fun fact, but it's definitely a chaotic fact. I have 5 kiddos, married my high school sweetheart. We have a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, 10-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. We call them the bigs and the littles, and I get to drive around. Michael, I'm a little jealous of your Mini Cooper. I'm completely the opposite. I have a big old 13-passenger party van with 5 kids and going to Costco. We literally drive a minibus around, but I love it. I share some of your passion. It does have a turbo, so that's kind of like my claim to cool momness. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Great. Wow. Well, thank you all for joining us. I can already tell this is going to be a great conversation, great group. So let's get into the online MBA and the choice to go that route. So I'd love to start, let's start with Michael and Jennifer first as current students. This is more recent for you. And Michael, we'll start with you. So what led you to an online MBA? Did you consider a full-time or a part-time? And can you share your thought process around that?
Sure. So I did consider full-time MBAs alongside the part-time ones. And really part of it was my husband and I had just, moved in together and we didn't really want to leave. He had a job here in the Boston area. And so I was sort of tied to Boston locationally. So I was thinking about full-time programs in the Boston area and then online programs elsewhere. And then part of that too was I was doing well in my job. I liked my job. I liked my industry. I wasn't going to be a massive career switcher. So I was working in the kind of academic publishing area, doing software related things. And that's what I see myself doing for the foreseeable future. So I decided that I would look at online programs, as a way to enhance my skills and sort of learn how other companies, work and how they do things in business, but not necessarily look to move full-time somewhere else and sort of uproot our life here. So that was my main reason for looking at part-time programs. I did consider some in the Boston area for full-time, but decided to go with the part-time option, also to, keep your salary, keep working, not have to have that instability. So that's my main reason.
Sure, great. And Jennifer, what about you?
Yeah, really similar to Michael. I definitely looked into the full-time. It was a decision that I was probably pondering for 5-6 years, right? Working mom, full-time job. It was one of those, is the time right now? No, the time's not right. Put it off a little bit longer. And again, honestly, guys, the time's never going to be right. You just got to jump in and start doing it. And that's really where a lot of my appeal came to the online with U of I. It is very at your own pace. The sessions are all recorded. So it was really easy for me to fit in, still learning, connecting with other cohorts within, my working mom, still being able to go to, activities and school events, being the mom at school and still, demanding for my job as well. So that was a lot of my process, but it took a while. I mean, I constantly looked at a lot of different schools and I just found U of I just fit that need and, the structure that I was looking for. So definitely.
Great, thank you. Charles, let's move to you. So tell us a little bit like where you were in your career when you started to think about an MBA, and again, why online, and did you consider other options?
The MBA had always been on my radar, but for whatever reason, I decided I was ready to go spread my wings after my undergraduate. I had thought really what appealed to me about the online piece was as I just like, Michael and everybody else, can you afford to take that time off? And that wasn't an option for me. So I had looked kind of like Travis had started getting some other educational opportunities before that were more related to banking and finance. And one was the Graduate School of Banking, which is done out of University of Wisconsin-Madison. And they had some partner programs that were online or part-time. And that really appealed to me with my situation. And I think there were 3 partners that they had used. And I'd picked UMASS. It was after speaking with different admission counselors, it was pretty clear this was the way I wanted to go.
Great. And Travis?
I would say my experience is really very similar to Michael, Jennifer's, and Charles in the sense that I was a working professional with family, kids, all those responsibilities. And My career, I was already working 50, 60 hours a week on average, and it required a lot of international travel. I never really knew if I was going to be in Abu Dhabi or Aberdeen or Canada or where I might end up on a weekly and monthly basis. So it was quite challenging when looking at brick and mortar programs to say every day at this time, I'm going to be able to be in class. I had no way to know that or to guarantee that. And like everybody else, I didn't want to stop what was happening in the progression of my career and where things were going. And I definitely still needed that money coming in. So when I started looking at the options that were available, a lot of the quality of online MBAs has just catapulted light years ahead of where it was 10 years ago. And the experience and the overall viewpoints of it in the industry are really just as good as any brick and mortar program. So having that flexibility to not only continue doing what I had to for responsibilities, but at the same time, investing in myself and preparing for the new trajectories that I wanted, it just checked the boxes for me.
Right. Excellent. All interesting to see the common themes there. A couple of you mentioned, just the costs versus the income, so on and so forth. Charles, we'll start this one with you. How did you decide that an MBA was worth the investment? I know you mentioned that it was on your radar, but did you think about ROI and when and how, and talk us through that?
For me, I wanted to do it. I was going to pay for it anyway, but I thought, there's a lot of gray hair in my industry. And so one of the ways we can kind of set ourselves apart is by adding to that, your toolbox, adding to the resume, to your education. So I just went to my employer and asked, it kind of negotiated with them if they would pay for tuition. I would put the time and effort and that sort of thing. And so surprisingly, they agreed. And didn't make me sign a new employment contract. So for me, easily worth the ROI. It was more return on time for me. And it was, that was really the math for me. And at this point in my career, because we have a lot of gray hair, there may be other opportunities. I'm very happy where I'm at, but I think it's always important. They say kind of age is a state of mind. As I approach 50, I enjoy learning still. So it was the right time, I felt. And if I was going to do it, I probably should get it done so I could enjoy the usage of that for the next 15 years or so.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Definitely worth it.
I saw lots of heads nodding. So Jennifer, seems like you agreed with what Charles had to say. Anything additional in terms of your thought process around the investment and the ROI?
No, similar to what she said, it was really along the same exact line. What I think was a little bit different is I was really blessed where my company provided 100% reimbursement. And my mentor and I were talking about my development opportunities. And again, like I said, I had been at the same company for 16 years. So a lot of my thought was baked from those days of bachelor, from getting my bachelor's degree. And he was probably my biggest advocate to say, like, hey, you got to go do it now. You got to go do it now. Like, it's free. And again, you have to pay for it up front, but to exactly what Charles said, like the ability that I could go I'm 40, right? So to your point, like I am no spring chicken, but to be able to go and connect with other people, other organizations, just to get a diverse, sense of thought and understanding, it was hands down the best investment I've ever made. So I love it.
Great. What about you, Travis? Anything to add to what they've said?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the primary reasons that I picked JWMI out of all the programs I was looking at, is because they actually ran the real-time ROI every single quarter for students and alumni who had been promoted. What were they seeing back? What was the return? What was the average net take back? So they were able to provide those figures to me at the admission stage of kind of this is an average norm. And what they reported is that every quarter, more than 70% of people reported getting a promotion while going through the program. And then what that typical average exchange was. And my experience was the same. In fact, I got 3 promotions just while going through the program. And if you look at kind of where I was pay scale wise and in my career prior to the MBA, and you look at where I'm at now, that delta, that difference in just the base pay alone is far more than the entire cost of the program. So that annual payback period, that break-even was very, very short, and that's paying dividends the remainder of my working career. So just like Jennifer said, hands down, best investment I've ever made.
Right. And so I wonder for each of you, as you talked about multiple promotions, Travis, as you were, thinking about the MBA, what your goal was. Was it promotion? Was it salary? career switch, learning skills, kind of what were you thinking, or what were your top objectives that for yourself that the MBA was going to bring you to realize?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at that. I guess I kind of come from a broken lens in that sense, that I come from generations of entrepreneurs that have done very well for themselves. And I've always kind of had that mindset. But at that point in time in life, I was a worker bee. I was working for someone else, trying to move up the ladder and make that switch. So the MBA for me was multifaceted, because I knew that ultimately I did want to open up my own company and do something for myself in time. And you need to be empowered with knowledge to do that the best that you can, obviously, to make that endeavor worthwhile. So I had some personal reasons for wanting to do it regardless, but I knew it was also going to benefit my career, which it certainly has. It's just really kind of that transition over into that new spectrum. So looking at kind of all the different things that were available for me with the MBA, knowing where I wanted to go, the lessons that I learned at JWMI with being able to immediately turn around and apply those every single day to work made immediate impacts on my day-to-day job, because I was taking things in the classroom the same week, turning back around and working through those and putting them in motion. And that's why I got the results that I did and the promotions that I did. But along that journey, I also started my own investment company, a small little VC group that we've got going on building up. And so that's kind of being nurtured in the background and getting into that. So I am applying it in a lot of different ways. And that's the benefit and the beauty for an MBA, for me anyway, in my perspective, is whether you're trying to climb the ladder, go out on your own, it's going to be nothing but beneficial for you. The knowledge base at any of these programs are fantastic. They're going to arm you with what you need to do to change your life. So I'll go on and on about that. You might as well.
Well, let's see if Michael has anything to add to that. So just in terms of, your goals for yourself as you were thinking about it, can you talk us through that?
Sure. Yeah, I kind of alluded to this earlier, that I left undergrad and I had worked at the same company for 6 years. And so I came from a humanities background. So I didn't mention this earlier, but I studied literature in college. So not a business background, had never learned what, an income statement was or anything about that, but I had worked for 6 years. And one of my big goals was just understanding I've learned a bit about my company's business model, how we run our business, how we interact with customers, but I wanted to really broaden my horizon and learn what the best practices were, learn from classmates, learn from professors, and understand something bigger. At the same time, I didn't see myself staying at my current company forever. And I knew I would eventually want to jump and do something else, move into a product management role. And I did that within 6 months of the program starting. So I made my career jump to a new company and got the kind of title I was looking for within 6 months. So now I've just been using the last 2 years of the program to build up that skill set and jump up in my current company a little bit more. But it was all about skill development, but also just broadening my horizons to other career paths and best practices that I hadn't been exposed to studying literature in my undergrad.
Gotcha. Great. So the next question for each of you, you each chose 4 great programs. What was the key factor? If you had to distill it down to the one thing that made you choose UMass, Illinois, Jack Welch, and CMU Tepper, what would that be? Charles.
For me, it was a personal connection I made with the admissions counselor. Really, she was very supportive. We talked a lot about the curriculum and the things that I really want, the takeaways I was hoping to get out of the program. There was, of course, in MBA, you got a lot of quantitative type things, and in banking, we do quite a bit of that too. So for me, there was above the other curriculum, it was kind of like, here's your information at a couple of the other places I checked out. Not that they were bad, but she was just, she felt like we'd like you to be here. And I thought, what, I'd like to be there too. So it had great curriculum. And something it was sort of in the background that became more of a piece of it as I went through it was the huge diversity of different people I got to experience that I just wouldn't have otherwise. And that was really beneficial through the program. And they sort of emphasized it. I kind of thought at the time, like, okay, that's great. Ended up being terrific. It was awesome to learn from such diverse backgrounds, not only geography, professional experience, cultures. It was pretty cool.
Right. Jennifer, why did you choose Illinois?
Yeah, I love it. So to add everything that Charles said, it was definitely a lot about diversity, but the biggest thing I kept coming back to is one, the reputation of their online program. I heard from a lot of colleagues how great it was. And then when I was making that final decision, it was the support system that they surrounded me with, whether it was a student guide, a mentor, people, they were matching me with other working moms that had similar concerns of me. The advisor was great. It was just, I felt really comfortable that I had the support system already there before I even, hit the enrollment button. So a lot of it was just the support that they gave me before I was even a student. I was like, these people can get me through this, right? Because my goal was honestly just to survive. That's really what it was. And I was like, these people are going to help me do it. Like I can call on them. They're giving me like the real talk. So it was just really great. And I can't speak enough highly words about it.
Great. Travis.
For me, with the Jack Welch Management Institute, it was really two factors. It was the curriculum and the applicability. So the curriculum, once I started talking to the admissions team and really found out this wasn't just a program with Jack's name tied to it, he was actually heavily involved and engaged in its creation. It was his brainchild after he moved from MIT to create this to touch more people. And obviously, everybody knows the CEO of the century and everything he did with GE and the business acumen. And, more Fortune 500 CEOs have come up under Jack than anywhere else. So I knew the secret sauce was there. It was just a matter of kind of going in and learning from it. The other aspect of it was the way the program is designed. It is strictly focused on teaching you how to apply the material you're learning, as opposed to just learning skill sets, reading stuff, going through case studies, all of which is vital, all of which you'll do at JWMI, don't get me wrong. But the point is every single lesson, every single week, it goes through that and then says, how does this apply to you? How does this apply directly to your role, to your job, to your company? And you're crafting that and going back and forth with that with your classmates and your professors and getting this buy-in. So it's kind of like a dojo where you can fall down. That's the perfect time to get it wrong, where you got your classmates and professors stepping in to say, whoa, put the guardrails up and reshape that narrative. But at the end of the week, you're empowered with that information to go right back into the office and put things in motion. And that for me I knew that's the difference, is at the end of the day, when it comes to business, it's about winning. It's about having impacts. You can know everything under the sun, but is it knowledge or wisdom? Do you just know it, or are you actually applying it? And that for me was that guiding light that just said this was the right fit for what I wanted to accomplish and do, was top flight education, great professors mixed with how do I put this in motion every single day.
Okay. And Michael, how did you choose?
Mine has two aspects too. I mean, one is, Carnegie Mellon has a really strong, across the whole university, but specifically Tepper has a huge emphasis on analytics and sort of quantitative rigor. And I think that was a big reason a lot of us wanted to go there, was we knew we were going to learn applicable skills, similar to what Travis said, of sort of skills you can apply and use in your real day job, that are rigorous and not just theory. They're actually practical things you can apply in your job. The other thing that's unique about Tepper's program is because it's a hybrid program, we do online, but we go to campus multiple times a year. That was a big draw for me and a lot of my classmates, was that we actually go to campus in Pittsburgh 6 times a year during the program. And so there's this really good opportunity for your cohort to mingle and sort of network with itself, meet the other cohorts who are in the program. And there's a really strong sort of, there's 3 days every couple of weeks where you're going in person and meeting each other and getting to do things, not just class. And so that was a big draw for me, was that social networking aspect along with the rigor of the academic program.
Great. So great segue into my next question. So we're going to stick with you. People who are watching, they want to know, what is it like? What is the class, the learning experience? What are the classes like? How do you interact with both the professors, but also your colleagues, other students? So Michael, share with us a little bit more about, you started to go into that a little bit in terms of, going to campus, but what was a typical day or week like in terms of the learning experience?
Sure. So a unique aspect of this program. So Tepper is on a mini semester system. So our classes are only 7 weeks long. So we start a semester, go to campus for 3 days. So we usually get there on a Thursday night and we're there till Sunday afternoon. And that weekend is sort of optional programming on a Friday, which is like leadership, building skills, kind of workshops, different things that are optional but encouraged. And then Saturday and Sunday are an intensive kind of 2 days of class to kick off the mini semester. So we do about 9 hours of class over that weekend. We all fly home. And then during the actual mini, we'll have class 2 nights a week, usually at 8 o'clock at night, something like that. And a lot of our classes are group-based. So, we'll do projects in groups, we'll do case study discussions, we'll do group, projects, homework assignments, whatever that might look like. But it goes by really fast. They're only 7 weeks long. So you start those classes, do 7 weeks, those classes end, and then you're back in Pittsburgh starting new classes again. And that cycle just continues. So it's a really unique, quick way. So it's a lot of content in a very short amount of time, but you're doing class a couple times a week and then finding time the rest of the week to do offline, videos and homeworks and, meet with your teams to get the assignments done. So that's a typical, mini semester.
Great. Thank you. Travis, tell us a little bit about life at Jack Welch.
Yeah, it was a little bit different than what Michael described in the sense that JWMI's model is purely asynchronous. So what that means is that it is always available to you to digest and work on when it fits your schedule, whether you're a morning person, evening person, daytime, lunch breaks, and you're able to shift that daily. So for somebody like me who travels a lot and a lot of things popping up, that kind of empowers me to take advantage of the schoolwork when it makes sense for me. But also when I'm kind of at my most prime, I'm ready to be game on, get into the knowledge and learn. So every single week you would have your learning modules that you would go through with videos from other CEOs, Warren Buffett, Jack, other people that came in to go through that, talking about the subjects at the time. If there's case studies going on that week, any reading, supporting collateral, things like that you need to go through. So that kind of kicks off on Sunday. Your first deliverable isn't due until Wednesday, which is basically within the discussion forum. So it's kind of a online Reddit thread if you want to look at it that way, but it's a way for everyone to engage. So you'll have a question posed based off of the learning, and you have to go and cite that, bring ancillary learning and other supporting documentation into it. And then throughout the week, you respond to several of your classmates, they respond to you, and you get that dialogue going. So one thing I really liked about that was there wasn't really any everyone has a voice, I guess is probably the best way to word it. As I'm sure we're all used to a brick and mortar thing in the classroom. The professor asks questions, 3 or 4 of the same hands keep going up. Everybody else is kind of quiet. So the benefit of that is that everyone's speaking and everyone's engaged. Doesn't matter if you're an introvert or you want to sit at the back of the class, you're still putting your thoughts out there and you're still engaging with your classmates as much as the most type A in the room. And it's because of that you're learning from everybody. And when you have that much diversity in the classroom and people from different countries, different careers, industries, it really gives an enriching dialogue and a lot of different perspectives. So you are learning as much from them as you are from the curriculum and the professors. So you have that back and forth in that dialogue that goes through. And then by Sunday, you'll have kind of your end of week deliverables by midnight, your time zone, wherever that happens to be for your papers or whatever's there. And typically you'll have 3 major assignments, sometimes 4, depending on the class, per quarter, which is what Jack Welch functions on. It's 4 quarters a year. So normally a 10-week class with a 2-week break, 10-week class. So it becomes very structured, and you'll find the routine is the same the whole way through, but normally 3 major projects a semester and then weekly deliverables along the way. And your professors are beyond available, cell phone, emails, phone calls. They really do have international students and are available 24/7. So it was unlike any other program I've ever been a part of.
Great, thank you. Jennifer, I'd love to hear about Gies and how the program is structured, what your life is like. And I think to Travis's last point there, access to professors, if you could also talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, to your point, that was probably one of the biggest concerns I had going into an online program. How was I going to connect with my professors, right? Like, was it always going to be virtual? And there's a lot of kids, there's a lot of students in the program too. So how am I going to get that one-on-one attention? Similar to what Michael had, we had an 8-week program. So every week we go through a different module. We kick off on Wednesday. There's a variety of different live sessions throughout that week that you can participate in, again, to meet your schedule. Is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Is it on the weekends? So you can definitely participate in those live sessions. And somehow they do it amazing. It's really like being in that classroom, right? I feel like the professor is speaking right at me. I can throw questions in the chat, ask questions, raise my hand, and go ahead and interact. And then we've got some great TAs that are assisting those questions as well. So that's really the live session. Once the live session ends, we then go into, a lot of it's group-based, similar to what you were talking about, Travis. So we'll be formed in groups. We'll have an assignment to work on. Really great time just to be able to connect, understand, get different diversity of thought. There's a variety of office hours where you can hop on and have that one-on-one connection with your professor as well. And the whole entire time we're getting email communication. We have a discussion thread board where we can hop on and say, hey, I'm really confused about number 2, or is anyone really lost on some of the material? So the connection is amazing. I don't know how they do it. I see these numbers on these calls, and somehow I still feel this one-on-one connection with all of my professors and my TAs. So it's been a really great experience.
Great. And Charles?
I won't belabor a lot of that because it would be repetitive. We had excellent access to professors. My panelist friends have articulated it very well. We had a good. I really enjoyed that. Like you said, Jennifer talked about how you could participate through the discussions. We had a little different setup at UMass in that we followed more of a traditional semester. So you had a spring semester, a fall semester, a summer session. And I believe that if you wanted to, you could have an abbreviated winter session as well. I chose to go take that little bit longer winter break and get some honeydews done. But it was the access to the professors that's what you think, right? You're going to be, gosh, am I going to be isolated in my office, just, glued to my computer all weekend? And that's just not how that goes. You find a good rhythm. You're interacting way more than you would expect. It's just a different interaction, right? It's all digital. And we've all, with the pandemic, have gotten used to that. It actually kind of helped for professionally to get comfortable with those mediums. So yeah, it was a good experience that way, because you sure didn't feel like you're all by yourself at your office just banging away at a computer. You were doing projects and interacting quite a little bit.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, this is a separate question for you. So your undergrad was in Russian literature, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so as people who are considering an MBA and may have a non-business undergrad or background, might be sometimes a little apprehensive about the quantitative and analytical part of the MBA. That, you said, was actually one of the reasons why you chose CMU. I'm just kind of wondering a little bit about how you've approached that. Given your background, had your job helped you with that? And how did you approach the quantitative aspects of the MBA?
Sure. There's a bit of it that I got through my job, doing things at my job, learning some quantitative skills. But coming into Tepper, they recognize and they want to attract, they have a reputation, I think, of being very engineering focused, a lot of quantitative people, but there's actually a pretty good mix of people who aren't engineers or business majors coming into Tepper. So they do a good job in the summer leading into the program of offering some sort of warm-up sort of things for you, of if you're not feeling super confident about statistics or calculus, that you can do coming in, that you can prep for before the program starts. And then some of the first core classes you take are sort of recap of stats, calculus, accounting basics, things like that people you might assume you might know if you did business as your undergrad, but they don't assume that. So it's part of the curriculum. And, since I didn't answer this earlier, the professors are also very available at Tepper, and people who are maybe more rusty on the quant side, who are kind of nervous about the analytics, they're super available to ask more questions and do office hours, and they're always happy to help with that. So I think it was the program provided a lot of structure, and that I used a lot, and they were very good at telling you the types of skills they expected you to have, and then helping you find resources to brush up on it if you didn't feel super confident going in. So it was a pretty easy transition.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about your classmates. So I got my MBA years ago, and I remember being surprised of how much I learned from my classmates outside of the coursework, the professors. So I wonder, is that your experience as well? And can you share an example of something that you've learned from a classmate that has stuck with you? Charles, let's start with you.
Well, I can't really put anything on specific outside of the fact that just the perspectives. I will give you an example. I remember specifically a project that we had to do in which I was working with a doctor from Israel who was currently residing in Kentucky. I think it was some kind of a executive of sorts at Pfizer, who was, I think, somewhere on the East Coast as well. And but he was by way of India. And we had different background, completely different backgrounds and experiences, and how it seemed like I could use that example, but there were several others that that you end up not knowing how it was going to go. Was there going to be a little bit of a language issue there? It wasn't. I mean, it was just phenomenal. It was the things you learn from them were, if we're all pretty confident in our brain power. So it's not always just the information you're trying to tackle. It may be just different ways of doing things. And that is something I thought, gosh, I never even thought of it that way. And gee, I think I'm pretty smart. And you just learn and you learn from people like that. And it really is, it's invaluable. And you learn the things you learn from other people, just not just the perspectives, but just how they approach problems. You kind of get a 360 view of different problems and how to approach them. And I think that might be one of the more valuable things I took away from the program.
Okay. Travis, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely have to agree with a lot of what Charles said. I learned as much, arguably, if not more, from my classmates than just the curriculum and the professors. Not to say either one of those was subpar, they were fantastic. But the benefit of what you go through in the classroom, especially when you're in a diverse group and you have individuals literally from all over the world in different industries, different stations, different parts of their career. Some are CEOs, some are mid-managers, some are wanting to become managers. So you're getting this wonderful subsample of different perspectives, different personality types, and like Charles has mentioned, approaches to problem solving and perspectives of how things are viewed. And you'll find during those discussion questions and those classwork aspects that how someone would approach a problem or even view something as a problem might be totally askew from you. But it's in that moment that you broaden your horizon, your understanding, your approach to things, and that just makes you better at the end of it all going through it. I can think of tons of examples as far as how I've learned from my classmates. One in particular, we were in the strategy class, and one of the guys in my class with me, he leads the nuclear, or I guess he still does, we're graduated now, but he led the nuclear program for the Navy. And that was kind of one of the things he was heavily involved in doing that. And we were in the strategy class talking over some pricing stuff, and he and I were not bantering with each other in an ill way, but more kind of trying to work through the classwork and strategizing like a pricing strategy. And our professor at the time, Jeff Brooks, who was the ex-CFO from Procter & Gamble, was leading that class. And we ended up getting into market cannibalization and how different price setting can actually come out. And it just kind of took us down this whole other path of learning. And it turned into this long thread with the whole class getting involved and all this ancillary learning that was just fantastic. But that pricing strategy has stuck with me today. And I've used it twice at work for products, and it's driven ARR and had huge returns. So it was actually an ancillary comment off of a question in a thread from a student that led down this whole learning path for everyone in the class. So it is engaging and it is fantastic. And although you have, as Charles mentioned, that belief that you're going to be siloed on a computer in your room typing away, technology and our interactions have come so far. You are really going to be shocked at the level of engagement you will get with an online program in today's time.
Jennifer and Michael, since you're both in the program right now, have you had experience with, learning from your classmates, and any examples to share? Jennifer?
Yeah, I would definitely say, much like Travis, I couldn't even put them all on our phone call today, but you learn little things every single time you get with a different group, right? You get with different people of different backgrounds, whether that's their industry, their profession, and you grow so much as a person because you're always in your own thoughts, right? Like, you come from a company, typically when you're in an organization, you have a lot of very similar minded people. We approach problems exactly the same way. So I really loved the opportunity when I could work with my peers. I'll give you an example. Most recently, last couple of months, we've been doing a capstone. So at the end of your 3 sessions, when you go through that specialized study, you get with a group of people. Sometimes you can pick it, sometimes it's assigned to you, and you have to do a project. And in this specific one, again, I made some lifelong friends. We had myself coming from a very CPG, very sales-driven, numbers, metrics background. We had someone that was a marketing director at a community club. We had someone from the healthcare industry, someone from software. And our end goal was to submit a business proposal. And it was amazing to see when we all came together. We were so used to, working in organizations, having the similar problem, but getting together, understanding how we approach different problems. We all had a different goal at the end of what our project would look like. And again, because of that diversity of thought, us all coming from different backgrounds, our project at the end of the day was better than anything I could have imagined. And I grew from each of them. I learned how to understand marketing and how to produce a really good video versus just one Jen does on her phone at home. So it was great. It was a great experience. And I continue to learn from peers every single day.
Michael, any other thoughts to add?
It's very similar as an experience. I've learned from a lot of people. We're all different backgrounds. I think, this isn't a specific story, but as someone who's worked for bigger organizations and don't see myself as wanting to start my own company, I've loved learning from the entrepreneurs that I go to school with, because that's just not my track. And I've loved talking to people who've started their own companies, built up their own organizations, started multiple companies in some cases, and jumped around a lot more, and just understanding how they've approached sort of brand new ideas, brand new problems, and how different that is when you're trying to start out on your own versus coming up with a new idea in a large organization, and kind of understanding how they approach funding and getting a customer base and trying it all out. One of my classmates at one point had an extreme pogo sticking company. That was a very fascinating thing to talk about, of what does that even mean? How did you start that? So it was really cool to learn from people who have just vastly different backgrounds than you have. So similar to everybody else, what they've said.
Got it. All right, so let's kind of put this all together. And Jennifer, I'm going to go with you on this one, work-life balance. So everybody's got job, school, family. You have 5 little people that you are taking care of. You've got social lives, you've got family, friends. What would you say were the best tools or the ways for you to just manage your time, yourself, and your sanity?
Yeah, great question. I'm still trying to figure it out, in all honesty. Real life balance, it's challenging. Every week it changes between how many activities my kids have, what the demands are at work, right? It ebbs and flows all the time. The biggest thing for me is sticking to a plan, and like having a plan and really sticking to it. And that really means that every Sunday, my husband and I are sitting there going, what does the next week look like? What does the next 2 weeks look? Well, hey, I need 2 hours for my MBA class. When are you going to get that? His work goals as well. So the biggest thing is really planning and prioritizing what's important. And that's, again, what really attracted me to the online program, is knowing that, to what Travis said, if I had to travel for work, I could go ahead and miss that live session because I know that there was a recording around it. But the biggest thing is just sticking to that plan, really.
All right, plan and prioritize. Charles?
Yeah, it's like a 3-legged stool, right? Work life and and academics. And it's if you're not balanced, then you'll fall over. It's just that simple. So for me, my wife teased me because I would plan out almost every hour in the weekend, and I would write date night if I knew I needed to spend a little time with my spouse. I mean, it was just something that is very much like Jennifer said. It changes, but you do get into a rhythm. It's not, don't feel overwhelmed if those who are thinking about doing this. It's, you learned how to prioritize things. As Jennifer said, you do find your rhythm for each class. They're a little different how it goes, but there's some similarities. There's ways to get through that, but it's important. I shouldn't even say 3-legged stool, because don't forget about yourself, because you can burn yourself out a little bit. I can get very, if I'm tackling a project, I can get very myopic, right? So it's important for me to pull my head up every now and again and look around and remember I might need to take a beat for myself too. So those are the important things.
Right. Michael, anything different to add?
It's not much different. I think you both hit it on the head. I mean, for me, going to Pittsburgh, I come back from Pittsburgh and my husband says, okay, what are the nights of class this time, the next 7 weeks? Like, is it Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday? It's like a game of trivia of when we're going to have class. And then we just work around it, and it's not that much class time. It's just scheduling all those weekends and what hours you're going to do. And sometimes it's blocking off Sundays and, doing date night on Saturday. But yeah, that's pretty much just plan, prioritize, know your schedule and know what your limits are and know when you have to take a break. I think that's really important too.
All right, we have about a minute left. So this is going to be lightning round. Everybody gets this question. For the folks who are watching this or will watch this, what is your biggest piece of advice? Travis?
I would have to say, hands down, do not put this off. Regardless of what program you're looking at, if you are considering an MBA to open up new doors, to give a new trajectory, to give you that next level of things, don't put that off. Where you are going to be at the end of that journey, it is transformational. It will set you up for success, and it's going to let you see that best side of yourself in the world. And you're never going to look back saying, I wonder what, or I wonder if. don't let that be that moment. Seize tomorrow, seize today, invest in yourself, and open up everything that you can be.
Great. Michael.
Hard to follow that one. I think in terms of picking a program, it's just understand what you're looking for the next couple of years, multiple years to be like, and find a program that meets you where you want to be. If you want ultimate flexibility, if you want more structure, if you want sort of a choose your own adventure, just understand what the program is going to offer to you and find one that meets you where you want to be. I think that's super important. Find something that matches you. But I agree with Travis. It's a good investment. Do it now. Don't put it off, because I think the earlier you do it, the more you're going to benefit from it, and the bigger that ROI is going to be.
Charles.
I'm going to go more tactical. For me, I remember it was so many moving parts that a big piece of me, I think it was my third class, start writing. I'd get these lightning strike thoughts like, that's a great idea, or classmate that would say something, or a takeaway I would have. And I literally came up with a little notebook where I'd start writing those things down. And then after my class was over, I'd take a half a day and do a post-mortem and really think about how I can apply what I just went through in that class towards my profession. And I got to where I was getting that down pretty good. I think I benefited a lot from that. So perhaps somebody else would as well.
Good advice. And the last word to Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously I echo what Travis said, do it and do it now. But besides that, I'm going to give you guys all grace. It's okay to put yourself first, right? A lot of times, if you're like me, it is my professional. I can't give up time there. You're a working mom, you're a spouse, you're, active in your community. You can do all that stuff, but I'm going to give you the grace. It's okay to put yourself first. Take the step, apply, find out which program is correct for you, jump in and enjoy that MBA. Because I'll tell you, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, however long it takes you, you are going to be so happy that you finally took the step and jumped in. You're going to be so accomplished.
Great. Excellent. Well, Michael, Charles, Jennifer, Travis, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us and to share your experience and insights with our viewers. Really appreciate it. And for those watching, stay tuned in another 15 minutes or so for another panel, or if you're watching this on demand, plenty of other alums and admissions folks for you to hear from. So thank you all again, and have a good rest of your day.
All the best, everybody.